Oh, well, guys, it's early Sunday morning and I'm down in the workshop here and I've got the jet ski motor up on the bench so I can start to tear into it, and I'm just starting to really question my sanity. This thing, there's just a lot more I can see wrong with this thing than right. I'm beginning to wonder whether or not it's just a complete waste of my time. But I owe it to myself to at least confirm whether or not this motor is complete junk or not. So I guess that's what we're going to do. So the design of this engine is called a Rotax design, which is kind of an interesting two-stroke design in the fact that instead of relying on, like in a typical two-stroke chainsaw engine, there are no valves. And what they rely on to actually do the job of valves is that they use the lower part of the crankcase as one chamber and then the upper part above the piston as the second chamber. And the way that it's ported, when the piston comes down, it exposes the intake, but when the piston goes up all the way, the skirt of the piston travels up the cylinder and will also expose a port. Like I said, it's early Sunday morning, so if that's kind of foggy. The point is, by being able to do that in that manner, you don't have to have valves like a four-stroke engine. But what they did for extra performance on this engine, which I guess they used this design on some aircraft engines, because when I initially looked up Rotax, I thought it was something that was unique to this, Bombardier Seadoo. What I ended up finding was a bunch of references to thick aircraft. So, anywho, so what they do here, though, is behind here, which is the carburetor, and we get the intake manifold right here, but behind here there is a rotating almost like a disc with a hole in it, and as that aperture goes by the port, it opens it up, right? So it's sort of like a rotating intake valve, for lack of a better term. But I guess you can have certainly have some failures in there that can cause some really bad things to happen. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to pull this carburetor off, because this carburetor is like really bad. I can just get the choke butterfly to move a little bit, but the throttle butterfly is seized. There's a linkage that goes from the throttle butterfly through this little clamp right here and to this arm right here on this device, which I believe is an oiler. So I think this actually pumps oil out through these little tiny lines right here into the system. Now that I look at it, I'm thinking maybe I'll just take this whole unit right off, because I'm looking at, it looks to be maybe 4 bolts, and this whole unit will come off with the carburetor and just be out of the way and expose the horrors within. Maybe I should look at the manual that I found online just to double check and see if that's even a good idea. I've already made several mistakes with this, none of which are catastrophic, but for instance, I found these weird shaped pieces in the bottom, flat pieces in the bottom of the hull yesterday, and last night I was reading up and discovered what they are, is they were shims that went underneath these mounting points, and they're used to precisely tilt and align the height of the engine. I guess they do that at the factory. So you're supposed to note how many and what location all of those shims are in when you pull the motor, so that you can put it back the same exact way. And I didn't do that. I found them just laying in the bottom, so they had probably, some of them had fallen off the bottom as I was pulling it up and wrestling with this thing. So unfortunately, when I go to put this motor back in, there's an alignment procedure. There's an alignment tool that Seadoo makes for doing the alignment procedure. If I can't get that tool, I'm going to probably have to try and do some of these home brewed methods that I saw online. Of course, this is getting way ahead of ourselves. This is going on the assumption that this engine's going to live. So I guess we could cross that path when we come to it. But needless to say, that's something that if I knew about ahead of time, I could have taken all of those shims and labeled them and taken note of where they went and made life a little easier. But it is what it is. Well, I forgot my phone upstairs, so I can't pull up that diagram and manual that I found online. So I'm just going to take the chance of doing something wrong again. This one's more seized. And I could see why. The reason why this one is a lot harder to get out is because this one goes into the block, so it's a blind hole, or it's a through hole into the case, into the crankcase, something, I don't know. No, it's probably a blind hole. This one, because of the design of the casting, it actually, the back end of this hole is actually exposed to the environment. And the environment that this was running in may have very well been salt water. I don't think this thing's going to just drop off when I get all the bolts out, but just for the heck of it, I'm going to leave that one in for a moment and work on the one I can't get to with the socket because this other assembly is in the way, which is why you're probably supposed to take this assembly off first. But this assembly has this little oil pump deal, or whatever it is, the oil injector, has these little tiny capillary lines, and one of them runs over to this port that is actually on the back of, it's actually on this part of the housing that I'm taking off with these bolts. Whereas if I just took the intake manifold off with these cap screws, then I would have to disconnect this line. I'm going to try and avoid doing that for the moment. It's funny, the only 13mm long handle, this is a regular Craftsman 13mm, but the only one I have with a little bit of longer handle is this one I picked up somewhere, I don't know where. And it's a snap-on, but it's been heavily modified. It was ground skinnier, but that actually won't be a problem for this particular application, I don't think. Oh, ow, ow, ow. Man, that hurt. Alright, that's not good. Maybe if I take this off, that'll give me the clearance I need to get that bolt out with a regular ratchet. Alright, let's see what happens. All these cap screws are metric too. Luckily, these aren't seized. It's easy to tell. The two screws that hold this little pump assembly on are smaller. These little ball end Allen wrenches are really handy, but you got to keep in mind that because of the ball end design, the shank is thin right there. So if you get a really stuck screw, it's easy to snap that little ball end off inside the screw head and give yourself another headache, especially if it's in a hard to reach place. So you always want to try and break it free first with the squared end. I mean the end that has no ball on it. You know what I mean. Luckily these weren't bad at all. I guess you should just loosen it up for starters. break the gasket free and see what kind of an oily mess might come out of here. Well, looks like most of the oil already came out of it. Good. Yeah, of course. Why would that come off? That would be too easy. There must be a gear or something on the other end of the shaft behind here. I don't know. This is not coming off. All I can do is swivel it a little bit, and of course I can't swivel it quite far enough to clear that bolt that I want to get to. Or does it? Not quite. Alright, so this little banjo bolt fitting right here, if I take this out, it'll remove this fitting off of the bottom of this, and that will give me just enough clearance to get that bolt. That and the combination of being able to swivel this up like this. And of course, because it's a banjo bolt, it's got a hole right through it and it's hollow. It's a very special little bolt, so I'm just going to stick that right back in there for now. Oh no, I don't. That's going to be in my way, dummy. Drink my coffee before any of these paint chips fall on it. Looks like you can't get to that bolt either. Oh, that wasn't stuck on there too hard. Alright, so I see a metal plate that acts as the little cover for the aperture. I see that that's got a direct relationship between this gear. So right now it's still in position and it's stuck to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this right back on. I'll try to. Oh, come on. I may find that when I clean this up that it's just got a mark on it to tell you exactly where to put this, but in the off chance that it doesn't. Okay, so now I'm going to just get my fingernail in there to hold that so that that stays on there. Okay, good. That's what I wanted. Alright, there's a nylon gear that drives that oil injection pump, and that feels a little crunchy. There is apparently a timing relationship between all of these gears because I see a timing mark right on that gear right there, right on that tooth. So, okay. Alright. It doesn't look as horrible as I thought it might look inside, quite frankly. Alright. Get that out of the way for the time being. So the question is, how do you know how to orient this disc? Alright, so I cleaned this up a little bit, and there's clearly a big timing mark right there on this gear. There's got to be something on this plate that I'm not seeing. Yeah, I know, I just disturbed the timing. There better be something on this plate, right? There's sort of something here. Can't really tell. It's kind of a... It looks like there's something right there. And that looks like it was lining up with that mark that I see on the gear there. I think. No, not really. If I line that up, then that's covering the holes. I know it wasn't doing that. Alright. I'm also wondering if there's a front and a back to this thing. Alright, well, just in case there is a front and a back to this thing, I'm going to write right on this with a Sharpie, front. Call that the front, facing out. How about out? So just looking at this gear under magnification, and I see multiple marks here. A couple of them look like they're factory. There's one here that I already saw, but then there's another one here, and then there's a big one over here, and then there's one that looks like it was scratched on by somebody. So I think I'm just going to have to rely on the manual for reassembly and timing. Stop screwing around with worrying about how this stuff was coming apart. Somebody may have already had this out and put this on wrong. I don't know. Under magnification, this marking right here looks like somebody painted on something. So I don't know if the factory did that or if some detected that during reassembly. Now, cleaning these out, this doesn't look that horrible right here. You know, it doesn't look like there was like salt water sitting inside the motor and rusting the heck out of it. But that's right into the crankcase. I've got my finger on the, feels like right on the crankshaft right there. Yep. Alright, so if I can find one of my darn lights, shine some light in there and see if I can see anything horrible.